Good evening. For 11 days, they were untouched. They were on the ground at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, 100 kilometers southeast of Riyadh, sitting in the open desert. 13 KC-135 Stratotanker refueling aircraft parked on the tarmac. These planes are the very backbone of the entire American air campaign. The aircraft that make every Israeli strike on Iran physically possible. Satellite imagery had been tracking them since before the war began. Their locations were known, their numbers were known, the runways where they were parked were known. For 11 days of Operation Epic Fury, 11 days of American bombers hitting 15,000 targets inside Iran, 11 days of cluster munitions falling on Israeli cities, 11 days of drone boats attacking oil tankers in the Gulf. Those KC-135s were parked on that Saudi runway, and Iran did not fire a single missile at them. Then on day 14, Iran fired. We can now report that 5 KC-135 tankers were damaged in a single Iranian missile strike on Prince Sultan Air Base. The Wall Street Journal broke this story on Friday, citing 2 U.S. officials. The planes were hit while they were parked. They were not in the air. They were not moving. They were on the ground in Saudi Arabia, a country that has officially stayed out of this war, and Iran launched missiles at them anyway. We are told no American personnel were killed. The aircraft are damaged, but reportedly repairable, and the total number of American aerial refueling tankers out of action in this war has now reached 7 in a single week. 5 on the ground in Saudi Arabia, 1 crashed in Iraq with 6 crew members killed, 1 with its tail damaged in a separate incident. 7 KC-135s in 7 days. And that brings us to the question Iran seems to want the world to ask tonight. Why did it wait 11 days? The answer to that question is critical to understanding how Iran is actually fighting this war. And it is not the answer you are hearing in press conferences or seeing in official statements. Iran did not wait 11 days because it could not hit those planes. It waited 11 days because hitting them on day 1 was not the plan. The strategy we're learning is sequential, deliberate, phase by phase. First, demonstrate that the KC-135s can be hit in the air. Shoot down the one over Iraq. Force the debate about whether it was hostile fire. Let the uncertainty do its work. Then, once the Americans have absorbed that and started to adjust, demonstrate that the KC-135s can be hit on the ground, 5 of them simultaneously, in a country that believed hosting American forces gave it a security umbrella, not a target designation. Each phase teaches a lesson. Each lesson costs something. The crash in Iraq cost 6 crewmen and 1 airframe and raises questions about whether the aerial refueling corridors over western Iraq are safe. The Saudi strike costs 5 airframes and forces the Americans to immediately begin evacuating the remaining KC-135s from Prince Sultan Air Base, dispersing them, complicating their logistics, adding distance and coordination burden to every single mission that depends on them, which is every mission, which is the entire air campaign. The Secretary of Defense stood at the Pentagon podium and said, "War is hell. War is chaos." He said it the day the Iraq crash was confirmed, when asked about the 6 dead crewmen. He said it again when asked about the broader pattern of losses. War is hell. War is chaos. That is the answer, the U.S. Secretary of Defense is giving to the question of why the most powerful air force in human history is losing tanker aircraft at a rate of roughly 1 per day in the 3rd week of a campaign that was supposed to be over in 4 days. Iran's answer to the same question is different. Iran's answer is this is not chaos. This is the timeline. Because this is what the pattern actually shows when you lay it out. Day 1, 3 F-15s shot down by friendly fire from Kuwaiti air defenses. Whether by accident or because Iran's jamming and deception operations created the conditions for it, the result is the same. 3 fighters eliminated. Day 13, a KC-135 Stratotanker shot down over western Iraq. 1 airframe, 6 crew, the single most visible American military loss of the war. Day 14, 5 KC-135s hit simultaneously on the ground in Saudi Arabia. No fatalities, maximum strategic disruption, maximum message to Riyadh that neutrality is not a shield. One after another, each attack in a different domain, each attack on a different category of asset. Fighters, tankers in the air, tankers on the ground. The sequence is not random, it's a curriculum. Iran is teaching the American air campaign what its vulnerabilities look like in order from most dramatic to most strategic. And it is doing it on a timeline of its own choosing. 11 days of watching, 1 night of hitting 5 planes simultaneously. That is not chaos, it is patience. And patience in a war where America is burning through interceptors and tankers and political goodwill at a rate that nobody planned for may be the most dangerous weapon Iran has. Here is the math that no one at a press conference will say out loud. The United States Air Force operates approximately 376 KC-135 Stratotankers. It also operates approximately 100 KC-46 Pegasus aircraft, the newer model based on the Boeing 767, intended to eventually replace the KC-135. The total aerial refueling fleet is over 470 aircraft. By any gross count, losing 7 in a week barely registers as a percentage, less than 2%. America is not running out of tankers, but the math that matters is not fleet size, it is position. A KC-135 sitting at a base in Nebraska is not refueling an F-35 over Iran. A KC-135 at a base in Germany is not extending the range of an Israeli strike package over Tehran. The planes that matter are the ones in the right place, at the right time, with the right fuel load in airspace that is currently safe enough to operate in. And what Iran has done in the last 72 hours is systematically attack both the safety of the airspace and the ground bases of those positioned aircraft. The 5 at Prince Sultan were not random members of the 376-strong fleet. They were the forward-deployed backbone of Operation Epic Fury. They were the ones already there, already prepped, already integrated into the planning for the strike missions happening right now. The U.S. military's response to losing them reveals exactly how critical they were. Within hours of the Wall Street Journal report, separate intelligence monitoring confirmed the U.S. had begun evacuating KC-135s from Prince Sultan Air Base, moving them, dispersing them to other locations. Which means not only are 5 damaged and undergoing repair, the remaining tankers at the base have now been relocated, adding complexity, adding distance, adding coordination burden to every air mission that depends on them. Think about what dispersal costs operationally. Before the Saudi strike, an F-35 on a mission into Iran could fly a known route to a known refueling rendezvous point, take on fuel from a KC-135 in a position that had been used dozens of times in the previous 2 weeks, and continue to the target. The crew knew the tanker's position. The tanker knew the fighter's arrival time. The system worked because it had been working repeatedly and the variables were stable. After the Saudi strike, those KC-135s are at different bases, possibly in different countries. The rendezvous point coordinates have changed. Communication channels must be re-established. The mission planning cycle gets longer. None of this is insurmountable. All of it costs time and attention and fuel and exposure. Iran does not need to destroy the American tanker fleet. It needs to make operating that fleet costly enough, uncertain enough, and dangerous enough that the tempo of the air campaign slows down. A slower tempo means fewer strikes per day. Fewer strikes per day means Iran's remaining military infrastructure, its missile depots, its proxy coordination networks, its coastal anti-ship missile batteries, has more time to adapt, relocate, and survive. And the longer those assets survive, the longer the Strait of Hormuz stays closed. The strait is the economic lever that makes everything else work for Iran. Every day it stays closed, oil prices stay elevated. Every day oil prices stay elevated, America's allies in Europe feel the pressure. Every day European governments feel the pressure, the political tolerance for this war erodes further. The Formula One races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia have been cancelled. The Grand Prix is not a strategic asset, but it is a visible, concrete sign of what this war is costing the Gulf states that were supposed to benefit from American protection. Cancelled events, banks evacuating staff, tanker shipping costs tripled, insurance withdrawn, a French soldier killed in Iraq. Iran is not trying to win a military exchange. It is trying to make the cost of continuing the war outweigh the cost of ending it. And it is running that calculation for every country currently touching this conflict. Not just America. Saudi Arabia did not want this war. Saudi Arabia watched 5 American tankers get hit on its territory by Iranian missiles on day 14. Saudi Arabia is now a target in a war it never joined. At some point, the Saudis will ask the question the Gulf states have been circling since day 1. Is hosting American forces making us safer, or is it making us a target? The answer Prince Sultan Air Base is currently providing is not the answer Washington needs those governments to reach. Iran understands this. It has been calibrating its attacks to signal exactly this point without crossing the threshold that would force Saudi Arabia to actively participate. No Saudi personnel killed, no Saudi infrastructure hit in this particular strike. Just 5 American planes on Saudi soil damaged, being repaired while their colleagues are relocated somewhere else. The message arrives without the consequence that would force a response. That is the most sophisticated part of the attack, not the missiles, the calibration. So let's add this up. Not the way a press conference does, but the way a war accountant would. Day 1, 3 F-15 E-Strike Eagles shot down over Kuwait. All 6 crew members ejected safely. Cause friendly fire from Kuwaiti air defenses. Cost 3 advanced fighters, the operational embarrassment of being shot down by an ally, and the first sign that air defense coordination across the Gulf states was not as seamless as the campaign plan required. Day 13, 1 KC-135 Stratotanker shot down over western Iraq. All 6 crew members killed. Cause officially under investigation, not hostile fire. Not friendly fire, according to CENTCOM. Meanwhile, Iran's proxy network in Iraq claims the shootdown, and the Islamic resistance in Iraq released a statement claiming credit. Cost 6 American lives, 1 airframe, and the first confirmed American deaths attributed to a single incident in this war. Day 14, 5 KC-135 Stratotankers damaged simultaneously on the ground at Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia. No American fatalities. Cause Iranian ballistic missile strike, confirmed by 2 U.S. officials to the Wall Street Journal. Cost 5 airframes under repair, the relocation of the remaining tanker fleet from its primary Saudi basing location, and the demonstration to every watching Gulf state government that their territory is not being protected by hosting U.S. forces. It is being targeted because of it. 7 tankers in 7 days. That is the headline. But the real story is what it costs to replace what those 7 aircraft were doing. The KC-135 Stratotanker entered military service in the late 1950s. The last one was delivered in 1965. They have been flying for 60 years in every single American military operation of the modern era. Vietnam, the Gulf War, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria. And in all that time, in all those conflicts, the United States Air Force has never lost 7 aerial refueling aircraft in a single week, not once. The tanker has always been the background infrastructure of American air power, essential, invisible, and vulnerable, because no one could reach it. No one tried. Iran tried. Iran succeeded, not completely. The planes are being repaired, the fleet is being dispersed, operations continue, but the category of invulnerability is gone. The tanker can be hit in the air over Iraq. The tanker can be hit on the ground in Saudi Arabia. The tanker, the thing that makes the entire air campaign possible, the infrastructure that allows an Israeli F-35 to get to Tehran from Tel Aviv, is now a target in a way it has never been before. Every future air campaign planner and every military on Earth is watching this. Every adversary of the United States that has been developing long-range missile and drone capabilities is watching this. The lesson being filed away is specific and transferable. If you want to stop the American air machine, don't try to shoot down the fighters. Shoot down the gas stations. The fighters are fast, maneuverable, stealthy, expensive to hit. The tankers are slow, large, predictable, parked at known bases, and the United States has never prioritized their survival because it has never had to. Iran has had to think about this problem from the adversary's perspective for 40 years. It has had 40 years to calculate what it would take to stop America from doing to Iran what America did to Iraq in 2003 and Libya in 2011. The answer it arrived at was not a navy, not an air force, not a nuclear weapon it never built. The answer was asymmetric. Mines in the Strait, drone boats against tankers, proxy networks in 4 countries, ballistic missiles with cluster munitions that defeat interception by releasing their payload before the interceptor arrives, and a very precise understanding of which nodes in the American logistics network, if damaged, would slow the machine down enough to matter. The tankers are those nodes. Iran just proved it knows that. The U.S. announced this week that American forces struck Karg Island, Iran's main oil export hub, the facility that processes and ships the majority of Iran's oil revenue. It was the strike Iran had specifically warned would trigger attacks on every oil refinery and energy facility in the region. Iran followed through. It announced that companies cooperating with America's energy operations would now be targets. The economic escalation moves in one direction. The Secretary of Defense said, "War is hell. War is chaos." He is not wrong, but the chaos is not symmetric. One side came into this conflict with a plan that assumed the other side would collapse. The other side came in with a plan that assumed it would not, and built its strategy around outlasting, not outfighting, the most powerful military in human history. 5 aircraft on the ground in Saudi Arabia, 7 tankers in 7 days, 11 days of patience before the strike. The timeline is not over. Iran has not said what comes next in the sequence. It rarely does. It just keeps following the plan.